Okay. Okay, good afternoon. Hello and welcome to our webinar, Powering Your Savings, How Solar, Batteries and Energy Smarts Can Slash Your Energy Bills. My name's Tanya Leishman and I'm one of the Sustainability Officers at Northern Beaches Council. And I'm joined here today online with Peter Vun from Ku-ring-gai Council. We jointly make these webinars for you, for businesses today. And this is our second one in our lunchtime webinar series. The last one was about renewable energy, and that was a few months ago. Our recording for that is still up on our website. So go to Northern Beaches and Ku-ring-gai Council websites and you'll get that recording. The reason why we're having today's webinar, Powering Your Savings, is that energy prices are on the rise, and now is a really great time to be looking at your operating costs and looking at some changes to operate your business and save some energy and also save costs. So today's speakers, we have Sarah and Gareth. They're going to provide you with lots of hints and tips for your business. So I'd like to acknowledge I'd like to just acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land that we work, play and live on, the Guymaragal and the Garigal people. I'd like to acknowledge the elders past, present and emerging. It is a really beautiful time to look at how we can connect with country, and some of the reasons are pretty easy to do. We've got some beautiful artwork here on the Northern Beaches along the coast, especially in that little picture there. You can see a beautiful artwork that we have there. It's an Aboriginal artist called Frances Bell Parker has worked with the Urban Projects team, and she's got some nice artwork there. It basically is a really good way to connect with country and to have a look at some traditional perspectives. Next slide.
Tanya, I'm
Yes.
not sure if it's just me, but slides aren't progressing.
Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry. How's that? Yep, beautiful. I'm so sorry. That's the beautiful artwork that Frances did. So I'll move on to the next one. So our agenda today is we're going to show you what Northern Beaches Council and Ku-ring-gai Council can provide for businesses. And then we're going to have two speakers. We have Sarah from Four Pines speaking first, and Sarah is the Environmental and Social Impact Advisor at Four Pines, and she manages the Four Pines commitment to brew better, which includes 1% the planet, 1% for the planet management and B Corp certification. Four Pines is awarded the Northern Beaches Business Sustainability Award last year in 2022. So it's a great company showcasing what we can do and how we can move better with sustainability. Sarah's also been one of the judges on the assessment panel for this year's Better Business Partnership Awards. And Gareth is our second presenter. Gareth is an engineer with over 12 years experience as an engineer consultant. And Gareth has worked with hundreds of businesses to reduce their energy usage and energy costs. His particular focus is working with businesses to find the best opportunities to not only provide great energy and greenhouse savings, but also cost effective and for long-term cost savings. It's just a little bit of housekeeping. We are recording this webinar, so we will be sending that out to you in the next few days. Your mics and cameras are turned off because we're in webinar mode, and we will be taking some question and answers later. That's for you to put your questions now. As you watch our two presenters, you might have some questions, put them in the chat function. And without further ado, I'll introduce Sarah to be our first speaker. Off you go, Sarah. Oh, my mistake. we're actually going to just show you a couple of slides first. These 3 slides from Northern Beaches Council the first one is about our network map, which is a fantastic map full of sustainable businesses. Some are concentrating on waste, some businesses are concentrating more on energy. It's a way of finding out in our community which businesses are doing what. And it's got a twofold reason. We want businesses to see other businesses and to collaborate. You can look it up and find out who's doing similar work to you, or to try and get some new ideas, to get some information. The second little slide here is just about the toolkit. So online again, we have the toolkit that is for businesses to get a how-to guides, to have a look at the online templates. We have local case studies. So a lot of different opportunities for businesses in the Northern Beaches. Have a little look at that. You can register up this agreement, and they're very common for businesses to save energy and money. This particular project has been started by the council. It's 100% renewable energy group PPA, and that means that businesses can all group together to achieve 100% renewable energy at a good price. And we are doing that by having an aggregator to facilitate this. So council put out an EOI for this process, and Business Green Energy are the successful applicants, and the project is now underway. So it means that businesses who probably couldn't access the cheaper and more sustainable energy can do that this way. So the PPA means that you'll be getting 100% renewable energy, and currently the company BGE is negotiating with an energy provider to broker the best deal. So we anticipate that local businesses will generate substantial savings through participation, and we're really excited about this project. In particular, the council has its own PPA, and they estimate that this PPA will achieve $1.9 million over the 7 years of the PPA. So it's a very good opportunity for businesses. Now I'm going to put you through to Peter. So thanks, Peter. If you could tell us a little bit about what Ku-ring-gai Council are doing.
Thanks, Tanya. Yeah, look, Ku-ring-gai Council, really excited to be co-hosting the event today and having Gareth and Sarah speak. Look, just really quickly, we wanted to say a little bit about the programs that Ku-ring-gai Council are offering to local businesses, not-for-profit organisations and schools. So, particularly at a time when we're transitioning to net zero across the community and energy prices are definitely on the rise. Look, Council has invested quite a bit over the years in both energy efficiency and rooftop solar. Everything from LED lighting internally in its buildings and street lighting, upgrading air conditioning systems with better controls, making our building controls a lot more intelligent and smarter, insulation, hot water systems, and energy efficient appliances. As well as rooftop solar is something we've done a lot on, and to date we're seeing annual savings of about $300,000 a year. And this happens all in parallel with the programs that we run for businesses, organisations, and schools. And that's through the Better Business Partnership Program that provides direct support for local organisations to develop action plans for sustainability, whether that's a focus on energy, waste, transport, or other areas of interest. The program also has a recognition and award scheme, and potentially of a lot of interest for organisations. There's a rebate scheme that allows businesses and organisations up to $2,000 to access $2,000 for things like energy audits, energy efficiency upgrades, rooftop solar and batteries, and electric vehicle chargers. So, do check out the Better Business Partnership pages from Ku-ring-gai if that's of interest to you. Tanya, if you're there, I'll hand. Oh,
hello, I
hand
am
back to you.
here. Thanks, Peter. We're ready for Sarah's presentation now. Thank you. Thanks, Peter.
I'll just get you to click to the next.
Yes, here we are.
Thanks, Tanya. I'd first just like to thank Peter from Ku-ring-gai Council and Tanya from Northern Beaches Council for inviting me along today to share the Four Pines story for our journey with brewing with better, cleaner and healthier energy, our renewable energy journey, which we're on and we continue to be on for some time yet. Thanks, Tanya. I'll have Tanya clicking to the next slide for me throughout, so I appreciate that. This maybe not be as smooth because I can't hit the enter button myself. There we go, thank you. So I thought rather than dive straight into what we've done at Four Pines, it's best to sort of look at what is the motivation, at least for us, and maybe something to consider as business owners or operators yourselves. So as Four Pines is a B Corp certified business, and we're committed to using business as a force for good, really considering the environmental impact and making just the right choices that are, good for us and good for the planet as well. First and foremost, the biggest call out is just addressing global warming. We are seeing the devastating impacts of climate change right here, right now. Referring back to the Black Summer fires, the devastation that caused for Australian communities and our wildlife, followed shortly after by the floods, once in a lifetime floods that we saw. And we're also seeing these major events occurring overseas now as well. So we're experiencing the effects of climate change. Also, when we look at research data, we can see that increasingly consumers are expecting businesses to act in an environmental and socially aware way. So 81% of people are expecting businesses to improve social environmental issues, and 78% of people are choosing to support businesses and considering that when they're making decisions for aligning to where they're spending their money. They want to see businesses doing the right thing by people and the environment. Increasingly, we're also seeing that employees are looking to align their own personal values with businesses that share their set of values as well. And then finally, we're seeing a crackdown on greenwashing. So now more than ever, it's really important for businesses to be walking the talk and having the robust sort of evidence and data that they are doing that if they choose to. So, doing it for the planet, doing it for the people and employees, and making sure that we can back ourselves up with data is really important. Next slide, thanks. And then just following on from that, another research that was also undertaken by the Republic of Everyone, The Power and Passion, interviewed 2,000 Aussies and asked, what's your biggest concern? And the number one was global warming. And then when asked, what do you want to see businesses taking action on? Number two was using renewable energy or becoming carbon neutral. So it's a really good, I guess, an additional motivator to the fact that collectively we're all living on the same planet, and we do have to limit our global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And there are, some positive ways in which we can do that and respond to today's trials. Next slide. Thank you. If we're to take a step back and sort of consider what does the renewable energy footprint look like globally and in Australia. So this is information from 2021, that during that year, 29% of Australia's total electricity generation was from renewable energy sources. And globally, that same year, 28.7 was the average. So what we're understanding is that Australia is average, and given, we're a big dry desert island, we've got so much solar and space for wind that we should be and could be doing better. Not to take away from the rapid growth that we have experienced in the last 10 years or so. But the biggest thing that we can do as business, and it's kind of like the closest term solution to solving climate change that we have control over, is where we're drawing our energy sources from. And as a corporate business, signing a power purchase agreement is a great way in which we can take that journey if rooftop solar is not available. Next, thank you, or collectively with both. So now to just dive into some examples from Four Pines and our renewable electrical journey that we've been on since 2018. Just want to call out that I can share these stories, but it's collective work across the Four Pines business from lots of our team members to be able to bring these to life. And I'm also no energy expert myself, but I'm really proud of what we've achieved together. In 2018, we made a commitment that we would be using renewable electrical energy by 2025, and we're really, a long way on that journey. We've still got a long way to go. Next slide, thank you. So 2018 was our first kind of major project, and we installed solar panels on our rooftop at our HQ in Brookvale. At the time, we decided against just purchasing them ourselves. We really wanted to take our community and our employees on the journey with us. So we worked with a number of organisations to create a power purchase community funded agreement in that, the goal was to transition to renewable energy, take our community on that journey, covering the costs of the installation, which at the time was $116,000. We work with Clear Sky Trust, who are an investment for solar and renewable energy company, and they were able to offer just 20 investors given their legal structure. So we asked Pingala Cooperative to join, and they ended up taking on principal 75% of the principal, and were able then to create a lot more opportunities for and a lot more approachable, affordable opportunities for our community members to become shareholders in this. So created 348 opportunities, in fact. What were the benefits? If you hit the next slide, please. Thank you. The benefits were we were able to create and launch this party. It was a bit like selling meat raffles and pulling the tickets out for a draw to decide who was going to be the actual shareholders. Four Pines today, so for a further 10 years after that post-installation, continue to pay for the energy that is generated and used, and that goes back to the investors with an attractive rate of 7%, and I'm one of those, put my hand up. And we also had, the monitoring device installed, so benefit for us is we're able to look at real-time consumption, look for inefficiencies, and just be addressing it. So our solar install provides about 25% of the energy needs that we have for our headquarters, and that's for our brewery, our packaging line, our truck bar venue, and our offices on site as well. Next slide, thanks. But to supplement that, we obviously have a number of hospitality operations as well as, a really large footprint for our energy needs. So in 2020, we signed a 10-year power purchase agreement, one with a wind farm and one with a solar farm. And there's some images from those actual farms themselves. So we're drawing from New South Wales. And for us, I guess, it's pretty special to be able to share this journey with our staff and know that when we're sipping on beer, it's powered by clean energy. Next, thank you. By having this power purchase agreements in place, we've managed to save, if ChatGPT can be trusted, 500 metric tons of CO2 going into the atmosphere and powering an EV to travel around the globe 143 times. So I feel like that's pretty impressive in itself. Next, thanks. And some of the initiatives that have taken place, you know, to help us reduce our energy is switching from LPG forklifts to renewable electric powered forklifts. And as you can see, I really like this picture. It's quite pretty with all the colours. Safety is also very important at 4 Pines. But being able to install those, it's meant that we're reducing our reliance on LPG. Here we have, it says we're installing an EV charging station. I put this together last week and I'm proud to share that we have now installed the EV parking station at our Brookvale truck bar. So that's out the front. And for us, we hope to inspire and encourage people, you know, within our team and locally to transition to electric and hybrid. Also providing that space for our neighbours, their customers, as well as our own, to be able to come and plug in if they're in the local precinct. Next, thanks. This is just an example of a really fun project we did a few years ago, a collaboration with Ben & Jerry's. We produced a beer that tasted like their chocolate chip and cookie dough. And this collaboration allowed 4 Pines to fund a revolving community rooftop fund. So through that, we're able to help non-for-profit organisations install solar on their rooftops. And they continue to pay for their electricity bills, but rather that goes back into that revolving fund to help the evolution, the next non-for-profit to install. Brookvale Solar Alliance are a group of awesome human beings that are really passionate about seeing the transition away from fossil fuels to clean energy. We launched the Brookvale Powerhouse Initiative last year. They have a vision to see 50% of Brookvale's rooftops installed with solar panels, which would be 70,000 solar panels generating 20 megawatts of energy, which is the same as a small power station. And I just want to call out another local business, Colour Maker Industries, up the road from us in Brookvale, that have got an enormous amount of solar on their rooftop, have EVs that are driving around and doing local deliveries, and are really worth researching beyond this conversation as well. So for 4 Pines, our journey looks like that community solar installation in 2018, power purchase agreements, LED light upgrades across our brewery venues and offices, replacement of electric forklifts, upgrading our heaters to electric, replacing LPG, heat capture from refrigeration, helping to heat the brew house, and many examples across our brewery where we've done similar things, and also having an incentive for our employees to switch at home to renewable energy. One of our employees has not paid a bill for 2 months because of that. We are installing sub-meters at our venues to be able to help us track, measure, and monitor our energy usages and look for inefficiencies. So some tip, tricks and hints for you to take on. Conduct an energy audit and look for areas of opportunities for improvement and any areas where there might be inefficiencies. Track, monitor and measure your waste so you can identify those inefficiencies. Upgrade to LEDs and take advantage of any grants that might be available. Replace any end-of-life appliances with energy-efficient options that are electric. Do away with the gas. If you have the opportunity and it works well, solar panel installation, and then also a power purchase agreement. Also collectively working as a team to turn the lights off and save energy. What does continuous improvement look like at 4 Pines? So we're currently doing our science-based targets and greenhouse gas emissions mapping so that we can have an informed net zero journey. Working with Solar Alliance, we want to create a Windbourne Estate solar farm park with our neighbours so we can share energy from rooftop to rooftop within our immediate precinct. And we have a audacious goal as a strategic goal for our business this year. We're approaching end of life for our brew house. We want to get rid of the gas. We want to replace it with electric. So looking to fund that, which is quite challenging. And finally, if you are interested in understanding a little bit more of what the sources were, what I was quoting, there's my sources on the left, and the Big Switch by Saul Griffith. If you haven't researched Saul Griffith or heard of him before, take that name down and search. He's amazing, and I highly recommend reading this book. So, I mean, you're all here today because you're interested in learning more, and I just suggest that taking on board what Ku-ring-gai and Northern Beaches Council are offering, and a bit of a call to action. If not now, when? And if not you and your business, then who? Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sarah. I'll
Pleasure.
pass it over to you, Gareth. That was wonderful and extremely, I just wanted to say before I forget, thank you so much for putting that EV charging station in, because that's so good to normalise EV charging stations. They should be everywhere. Okay, over to you, Gareth.
Okay, so first of all, my video should be working. Hopefully everyone can see me. Yep. And I've just done something to my Zoom. So let's change this back again. There we go. Okay, so we have a lot to cover today. We're looking at energy savings and solar for businesses. So this is a lot of content. We have 15 minutes. So we're going to work through very efficiently at a very fast rate. I have lots of slides. This can be used as a reference later. You can look back at. But we're just going to power through them really fast today, try to cover lots of topics. And at the end, we can always go through in more detail in the Q&A. So good starting points to think about for your business. What are your goals? Are you trying to reduce your energy costs? Are you trying to make your business more sustainable, reduce your greenhouse emissions? Are you trying to go above and beyond and get really, invest to get the best environmental outcomes? And so we're going to talk about energy savings first, then solar. And so that's the way we want you to approach this to be more sustainable. Reduce your energy usage first, reduce your energy usage. And here we have an example of a client we've been working with now for 8 years. And that's what they did. First, they did some ventilation controls. They got a really big saving. Then they did a lighting upgrade. Then after that, they installed their first solar array. And then they installed a second solar array with batteries. So that's this, again, this continual improvement that Sarah was talking about. It's this long-term project where we want to keep seeing savings over and over time. And the first place to start is with energy savings. Next slide, please. And the first place to get started when we're looking at energy savings, often the easiest way to get savings is looking at our after hours electricity usage. So how much electricity is being used when your business is closed and there's no one there. So it could be equipment in standby, could be lights left on, could be air conditioning left on or switched on automatically. It could be staff or cleaners switching on equipment and that's running. Here we have a case study of a site that we did an energy audit of many years ago under the Better Business Partnership Program. This was a childcare centre and we found that half of their electricity was being used when their site was closed. This was a large tenant, a ground floor tenant in a large commercial building. Their air conditioning controls, they weren't aware of. They knew that when they're at site, the air conditioning was working. When they left, they didn't know what was happening. And what we saw was that the electricity usage was coming up every morning at 1 o'clock when it shouldn't. It was also running every weekend when it shouldn't. So by doing some simple controls, they're able to reduce electricity usage by about half. Next slide, please. Lighting. I'm sure we're all aware of all the options for lighting, that there's LED out there. What we want to think about is that there's a lot of different types of lights at every business. And no matter what type of light, no matter what area, there is an option to upgrade to LEDs. We also want to think about lighting control. So obviously motion sensors, we want to look at daylight harvesting, which are just sensors which sense natural daylight and will switch the light off or dim it down to take advantage of that natural daylight. Before we used to use motion sensors to control a large bank of lights. These days, a preference are for LED lights with inbuilt motion sensors. So each light has its own motion sensor, and these are very cost effective these days. We also may need to think about lighting controls and the lighting circuits. So for many businesses, you have a warehouse or a large office, all the light switches may be at the entrance to the site. Someone may go in, switch all the lights on, the whole place is lit up, even though many areas are not occupied. So for some sites, you may need to look at rewiring some of these lighting circuits and separate them as well. Next slide, please. Yeah, there we go. I had a background color here, but it didn't come through. That's okay. So we're going to talk about air conditioning. If you have a large site with a large scale air conditioning system that may have a chiller and cooling tower and condenser water pumps, these large systems, there are going to be opportunities for large scale upgrades and to optimize that system. But we're not going to focus on these really large complex systems. We're just going to talk about some quick, simple air conditioning tips for cooling. Things like your set point temperature. We don't want to overcool in summer. We don't want to overheat in winter. We want to clean the filters of the air conditioners and maintain them. We want to use blinds or window films to reduce solar gains, and they can reduce heat losses in winter as well. How is our air conditioning zoned? So a ducted air conditioning system is going to distribute air throughout your business. When that was first set up, maybe it wasn't set up in the best way, or maybe it was, and you've changed the configuration, you've put in partitions and put in new offices, and the way that air is distributed may no longer be optimal. So you may want to do an air balance. Can fans be used instead of air conditioning? Air conditioning is not the best solution for many applications, for many businesses. We'll talk about that a bit later. How is air conditioning controlled? This is such an easy way to get savings. So is there a time clock which switches your air conditioning on and off, or are staff doing it? If it is a time clock, what are the set times? Does your air conditioning run on public holidays? If you have a time clock controlled air conditioning, most likely that's a 7-day timer, Monday to Sunday. What we want is a 365-day programmable timer where you can actually program the unit not to switch on automatically on public holidays. Is your air conditioning controlled by staff? Not all staff should have access to switch on and change the settings of air conditioning. That should be limited. And what about after hours air conditioning? As we've seen before, what is happening when your site is closed? If someone wants to get after hours air conditioning and they switch the units on, will it automatically switch off, or is the potential it could run all night or all weekend? Other issues or opportunities, I should say, such as can we bring in fresh outside air, cooler outside air instead of trying to cool down the warm air that's in our building? Can we use heat exchangers? If we need to bring in outside air, and that means also exhaust some inlet inside air, can we use some of that inside air we're getting rid of to pre-cool or preheat the air that we're bringing in? Next slide, please. Some tips for heating. It's important to think about, is our air conditioning system reverse cycle? If it is, it works on the refrigeration cycle, which is very efficient. However, many air conditioning systems work on the refrigeration cycle for cooling, very efficient, but when it comes to heating, they just have heating elements within the ducts. These are just resistive heating elements like you'd find in a toaster or a hairdryer, and they're extremely inefficient. So your air conditioning system could be very efficient at cooling, and it may be very inefficient at heating. It's important to be aware of that. There's an option to use ceiling fans to try to optimize how we heat our space and to move hot air around. If we do want to use some localized heaters, there's a choice of radiant heaters or convection heaters. We want to make sure we're choosing the right heater for the right application. Next slide. Ventilation is something which is often forgotten about. There may be a lot of fans within our building on the rooftop. We may not be aware how they're controlled, or even if there's fans or what size they are. So there's often some opportunities for ventilation as well. For many sites, we're seeing they've already upgraded their lights, they've already looked at air conditioning, they've already installed solar, and now these ventilation fans can be over half of their electricity usage. So it's really important to think about this. Here we have a photo of a large, back to that slide. Here we have a photo of a large car park fan, and they installed a carbon monoxide control sensor and a variable speed drive to make sure this massive fan only runs as required. We also have a photo of a hybrid fan here, which one of our clients upgraded to. And this will use wind power when there's wind. When there's not enough wind, it will use a high efficient AC motor to drive the fan. Next slide. Here is a case study for air conditioning and ventilation. So one of our clients was a Thai restaurant. We helped this site save $23,000 a year. About half of that was by moving onto the correct network tariff and the best energy rates. The other half of that saving was through reducing their energy usage. So what happened with this site was they would have a large commercial kitchen and they needed to run ventilation fans. The air conditioning and ventilation was all controlled through a mechanical board in the kitchen. What they didn't know was that their large air conditioning unit, which was hidden out the back, was linked to their ventilation fans. So whenever staff came in and they switched on the fans for their kitchen each day, it would automatically switch on this really big air conditioning unit. And for a large commercial kitchen, we do not want to use an air conditioning system to try to cool that space. That's not the way it works. We want to use ventilation fans to suck out that hot air and bring in fresh air. And that air conditioning unit was running and it shouldn't have. So just by realizing that, and within half an hour, electrician could decouple the units, the controls, and they got massive savings. Appliances, quickly talk about this. We want your business to consider the most efficient appliances. Whenever there's a time for a procurement, we want to go for the most energy efficient option. And there's lots of information available on government websites about energy efficient appliances with their energy ratings. Next slide. Hot water could be a big energy user for many sites. If you have a gym, if you have a pool, if you have a hotel, then hot water will be a major energy user. The background picture here was one of our clients. It was a aquaculture facility, so a fish farm, and they had electric heat pumps in order to maintain the correct water temperature for the fish farm. With hot water, with everything else, first we want to reduce usage and reduce losses. And then the next option is to then look at an upgrade, ideally an electric heat pump or some solar as well. Next slide. Quickly, we're going to just mention air compressors. If you have an industrial facility, small or large, air compressors can be a major energy user. Here's a case study of a client where they reduced their air compressor energy usage by almost 50% by upgrading to a new efficient unit, also upgrading their air reticulation system, and by fixing air leaks. So they got massive savings of 92,000 kilowatt hours a year just by upgrading their large compressed air system. Next slide. And lastly, just going to quickly talk about refrigeration. So whether it's these standalone display fridges in a shop or a supermarket, whether it's a cool room for a restaurant, or whether it's a large refrigerated workspace in a factory, lots of options too. First of all, again, we want to clean our filters. We want to conduct maintenance. We want to reduce the heat increases and use plastic curtains, for example, and then look at potential upgrades to more efficient compressors and condensers. And here's an example of a very dirty coil on a refrigeration system that could do with some cleaning. Next slide. So now we're finally onto solar. So with solar, there's a few key issues we want to think about before going too far down the track of looking at solar. They are, what is the condition of our roof, our electrical infrastructure, and how is our roof access? So with our roof condition, we need to think about, are there any leaks? Have there been any historical issues? Do we know that if there's a big storm, there could be issues? When was the roof or the roof membrane last maintained or upgraded? And when is it due for its next upgrade? We've had many clients who have gone down the path of looking at solar, and at the very end, they found that their roof just had a few issues and it needs to do a big upgrade prior to installing solar. Next slide. Here we have a case study of the Roseville Cinema, a great local cinema. We conducted an energy audit for the cinema with the Better Business Partnership quite a few years ago. Emma installed a 39.9 kilowatt system back in 2019, and they're getting energy savings over 30% and saving over $12,000 a year. So massive savings. And here we have a photo from the Solar Pro website, who is the solar company who did the installation. Next slide. Just quickly, when we look at solar, there's different types of mounting. If we have a concrete roof with a waterproof membrane, we can either look at options that pierce the membrane and bolt into the roof, or it could be a ballasted system, which is weighted down, which doesn't pierce that membrane. There's also some options potentially for an adhesive to glue the panels down as well. Keep moving forward. Next slide. When we talk about electrical infrastructure, does our switchboard look like this, or does it look like this? When we do works to our electricity infrastructure, our main switchboard, it may trigger the need to upgrade our switchboard to the latest Australian standards, which is not a bad thing. We want to do that, but it's something to be aware of, and it could be an extra cost for solar for some sites. Next slide. We're talking about roof access. Here we have 3 different clients. On the left, the site had great roof access, but there's one narrow area and they had to install handrails before they could safely work on that roof. The middle site, very keen for solar. However, no solar installers were willing to work on what is a very dangerous roof to access. Last, we have a site with good roof access. However, the hatch was too small to get solar panels through. So they had to look at a crane to get the equipment to the roof as an extra cost. Next slide. So how much solar can we accommodate on our roof? So a solar array takes around about 8 square meters per kilowatt, give or take. We may have a very large roof, but only a portion of that is going to be usable to install solar. It's limited by things like shading and ventilation equipment, anchor points, orientation. Here we have a photo of a client's site in the middle where they've got a large roof, but a big section is orientated to the south and not ideal for solar. We have another client with the roof with a lot of different bits of equipment on the roof, which limited how much of that roof they could install solar on. Next slide. When we're looking to find out how much solar can we put on our business roof, there's this really good solar online tool we highly recommend you use, which is Sunspot. You can go in there, you can type in your address, you can look at your roof, you can plot out solar panels onto your roof and get a really good idea of what size system you could fit onto your roof. So I highly recommend that you check that out after today. Next slide. So once we know how big a solar array could we put on our roof, the question is, well, what size solar array should we put on our roof? And we really want to size solar to meet our daytime electricity usage, not our usage per week or month or quarter. During the day between say 9 or 3 or 4 p.m, how much are we using during the day? Once we know that as a rough guide, you could size a solar array to be maybe 1.5 to 2 times that size. It's interesting, I think, to note that if you have, say, a 10 kilowatt solar system, it's never going to give you 10 kilowatts. It's always a little bit less than its rated output. So it's a good thing to know when sizing a solar array. We need to be aware of the export ratio. That's the percentage of electricity that we're exporting back to the grid over all the electricity that we can generate. Here we have an example of a client where they installed a 25 kilowatt solar system, and we worked out that 18% of all the electricity that they generate was going back to the grid. That's not such a big issue. When we're installing solar, there's all these fixed costs with labor and access. So we often want to go a little bit bigger. We understand that different days the usage may vary and solar output may vary. So some export ratio is okay, but we don't want to go too large. We don't want to overcapitalize in an oversized solar array where too much electricity is going back to the grid. So that's really the trick with sizing our solar array, to get an export ratio which is not too big. We can get a feed-in tariff, but the cost that we get from that is not the same saving as we get from purchasing grid. So we really want to size our array properly. Quickly, when we're trying to find our daytime electricity usage, we do not use the data on our bills. We use our bills to get the cost for electricity during the day. Really important to know what our daytime rate is Monday to Sunday in daytime sun periods, and that's our cost. We use our interval data that we can request from our energy retailer. We look at that to work out, well, how many kilowatts are we using during the day? Here we have some data where they're only using about 6 kilowatts during the day. So maybe a relatively small 10 or 12 kilowatt system could be well suited for this particular site. Next slide. We don't have too long to talk about batteries. One thing I do want to mention is that batteries are most cost effective when they are fully utilized, and that means they are fully charged and fully discharged every day. We talked before about that site where they had installed a 25 kilowatt solar array and about 80% was being exported back to the grid, but that would vary day to day. There were some days when very little would be exported, some days where a high amount would be exported. Even if they installed some batteries, our calculations show that those batteries would not be fully used and not be fully discharged every single day. So you're not getting the best bang for your buck. Batteries are never particularly cost effective at the best of times. We really want to use them in applications where we know they're going to be fully utilized every day. Or batteries are a really good solution, like we saw in the first slide, for sites that have already done lots of different energy saving upgrades, already installed solar, and then as a last step, 8 years after they started their journey, they installed solar with batteries. A quick slide here about solar warranties. I won't go into this. This is something you can look at later. Next slide. There's a few slides that I think have disappeared. That's okay. A last thing to say about solar is that solar won't be able to supply all your business electricity, and solar may not be viable for every business. And as Sarah was talking about, there is still an option to power your business with 100% renewable energy, or energy from a wind farm or a solar farm, either under the power purchase agreement, like what's being organized by council, or by buying green power from your energy retailer. And green power is a federally accredited system, so you know that you're getting the real deal. And that is it for me. The final tip, if you need to know more about helping your business, is to consider conducting an energy audit. And thank you. I'll pass back to the team.
Thank you so much, Gareth. That was unbelievable. You've got so much information there, and I'm sure people can process that when they rewatch the video and also get the notes from our webinar today. Thank you. The Sunspot application is amazing, and that actually can be accessed from the Northern Beaches Council website. I know that too. I'll pass it over to Peter, and we're going to have the question and answer session now. So if you haven't already, pop your questions in the chat, and I'll turn my video off so Peter can talk to you.
Right, thanks Tanya, Gareth, and Sarah. Look, before I jump into Q&A, I just wanted to say it strikes me listening to Gareth and Sarah how many opportunities there are potentially available for businesses to save energy. There's quite an array of things that a business can look at. I suppose that means there's lots of information to consider as well. So it's, probably understandable if it's not clear where to start, if you're a business looking at this for the first time. So, do reach out to your local council if you're at that point of, looking for advice on where to start, or to an energy consultant, someone like Gareth. And I just quickly wanted to mention as well, for any folks who are tuning in from North Sydney, the North Sydney local government area, or Willoughby Council, that the Better Business Partnership program operates in those LGAs as well. So you're welcome to connect with BBP through the councils there. Do we have any questions? If people would like to pop them in the chat, we're going to take questions that way. So just do type them in there. But maybe I can kick off the Q&A session with a question for Gareth and Sarah. If you're a business or an organization and you're looking at something like solar or some, maybe an initiative around air conditioning, you've received some advice, or lighting, what are your tips for finding credible contractors? Do you have any, key thoughts on, trustworthy and credible contractors? Because we see it a question that comes up quite a bit.
I'll jump in first because Gareth has no doubt very different to mine. For us, it is networking, speaking to others, and looking for recommendations, getting a number of different quotes as well, and just doing a little bit of research. When it came to solar, we've got a really great relationship, as I said, to that team at Solar Alliance. So I trust them wholeheartedly, and quite often go to them and say, I've got this idea, or I'd like to do this, and they'll help us. So yeah, I think just networking is a great way.
That's great. Thanks, Sarah.
I'll mute myself. I know that Emma at Roseville Cinema said that at the time she found the solar installer on the Willoughby website when they had a list, but a lot of councils don't have recommended suppliers these days. When I do it myself, I call around, I do the research, I try to find a supplier where there's I guess they've been around for a while, or they have a reputable product. There's a company, there's a LED lighting company in Lighton, which is Australian owned and located not too far away as well. They're great, but at the moment I've been trying to find someone who can do some heat pump upgrades for centralized hot water systems. So I call around some big brands, I speak with people, and you find suppliers and installers who are motivated, who will actually come to your site and do it in a timely fashion. So getting someone who's going to listen to you, actually come out to your business and quote it up is half the battle. And I'll call 5 or 6 different companies, and I'll get maybe 2 to be really motivated and actually come out to the site. So I think they sort of show themselves to be worthwhile by they put in their time and effort to come in and quote it up properly.
Oh, that's some really great thoughts there. And I really like the idea of, using your networks or reaching out to others with experience, whether it's other businesses or organizations, or an energy consultant, or even seeing if local council has some thoughts on that. Thanks. I've got a question here from Sally for Gareth. How do I know if my aircon is using heating elements or not? Is this something I can see in the roof cavity?
This is tricky. The best way to find that is to look at the main power source of the air conditioning unit is your outdoor condensing unit. So that's what houses all the guts of it, the motors. And there's going to be a nameplate on there which says the model number. And what I would do is look that up, and I can see how the heating and the cooling is set up. So it's all about finding out the actual model and make of your air conditioning system. Sometimes that's in the ductwork, maybe the ceiling, maybe the air conditioning units in the ceiling. It can be really tricky if it's hidden in the guts of the building, or it could be tricky to find out if it's on the roof and there's not easy access to the roof. So I guess it depends if you have a standalone building, if you're part of a large commercial building, in which case you can talk to the building managers of that. But yeah, it can be tricky sometimes if the unit's hidden to actually find out its details.
And I take it, Gareth, that if you've got a maintenance contractor, a good maintenance contractor should be able to answer that question for you.
Yeah, there may be someone who, you know, if you call up, if it's not working, and they're the people who may be able to tell you, it should be able to tell you the information if you can't find it yourself. I guess whoever you call when it's not working, they're the good point of call.
And if you do get stuck with building management or your contractor, presumably an energy consultant is potentially also someone else who can help out.
Yep.
Awesome. So a question from Lani. Could you please clarify what an air balance is for air conditioning? I think this one's for Gareth.
Yep. So an air balance refers to when we have a ducted system. There's going to be a fan somewhere which is supplying air through all these different ducts. And the way that that is distributed, the way there's going to be different dampeners and valves, it's going to control where the air comes through. And an air balance is something a bit more technical that an air conditioning specialist can do, which is making sure that the air is coming out into the right areas with the right flow. So it's all about how the internal valves and dampeners are directing air distribution from their supply fan through your ducting. And that's something, you know, a bit more of a specialized air conditioning thing. And a lot of businesses will do that if they've reconfigured their office, they've put in new offices, new partitions, and the actual layout is very different to when the first air conditioning system was first installed.
Right. Yeah, I always think of air balance. Air balance always comes to mind when someone tells me in an office they're getting too much warm air or too much cold air. There seems to be too much going into one particular space and not enough into another part of the floor. So it is a good one to keep in mind. Another question from Lani. If you're a business, and this one we'll throw to the panel, if you're a business that uses less than 100 megawatt hours a year, is a PPA worth considering?
Yes, or finding a energy provider that uses renewable sourced energy could be the way to go. I think maybe Gareth could talk to that a little bit better, but like I do at home, using a renewable provider might be better suitable to smaller businesses rather than going down the PPA route. Gareth?
Yeah, just to talk on that 100 megawatt hour per year cutoff. So in New South Wales, in Ausgrid, the type of electricity user you are, the type of account you have, is classified as small, less than 100, or large, over 100. If you're a small business, less than 100 megawatt hours per year, you're in a very different type of electricity contract. It's like your household contract where you can call up an energy retailer or go online and you can switch retailers within 5 minutes and keep switching anytime you want. If you're a large energy consumer using greater than 100 megawatt hours per year, you buy electricity totally different. You enter into a long-term contract for say 1, 2, 3, or 5 years, and those rates are locked in. The retail component is locked in for that period. So one's effectively, if you went to the shops and bought flour every day, if you're making it home, or if you're just say a really large producer of bread, you may lock into a 5-year contract to buy flour at a set rate for those 5 years. So it's a very different way of buying electricity, whether you're above or below that 100 megawatt hour per year. There may be an option for smaller businesses to enter into that PPA. I haven't really looked into it. It's definitely could be worthwhile. But if you're really small, it may be better to go to energy retailer and just buy their green power and opt for a 100% green power option as part of your small business contract. And that's something that you can change, you know, every month if you want to, very easily.
Right. Thanks, Gareth and Sarah. Question here from Heather. Does Sunspot recommend installers? No.
No, I don't believe
doesn't recommend installers. No,
they don't.
Okay.
They have a tool to size the solar array. They can show solar radiation and highlight different areas of your roof. It like pops up in different colors. It could also do a bit of a cost benefit analysis. You can enter in some billing data. So it's really good to give you an idea of what size solar system may be suitable and what are some of the cost benefits, but I won't recommend installers.
So that might be one of those instances where you reach out to other businesses you know that have done solar and been happy with the outcome, or maybe have a chat to an energy consultant or local council to see if they have any tips.
Yeah, so it's something that I have lots of suppliers I've worked with for many years for clients. So I have definitely people I recommend. I can't recommend today because this is the council webinar, so we don't recommend particular companies. But yeah, any energy consultant would know people that worked with and known of for many years, and then they know do a good job.
I might jump in now, and we'll have to close up if that's okay, everyone.
Great.
I'll go to the
Tanya.
next slide. Thank you so much, Peter, for doing the question and answer sessions. There's so many more questions that we all have because it's a fascinating subject, and networking, I think, is always repeated when we have people interested in when they're starting off. And I think that's why coming back to our council's websites are really good to look at what we provide. So with Ku-ring-gai, have a look, please, at the Ku-ring-gai Council's Better Business partnerships and the rebates, and connecting with people, asking questions, getting on to the registering and getting on to what the Northern Beaches Council provides, having a look at the other community businesses, and registering if you think that your business is big enough for the PPA that we're working on. So there's lots to say here, but also the energy audit kept on coming up, didn't it? So I'd like to just say thank you so much to Sarah and Gareth. You are very valuable, and I think it's really great that people know exactly all those things that Four Pines have been doing and how much help Gareth can be, you know, someone who has such extensive knowledge and has worked with so many businesses and solved so many problems. It's just really great. So thank you so much for being our special guests. Before we say goodbye, I'd just like to say, people, please, who have attended today, please fill out the survey that we'll send out via email. And within a few days, we will have this webinar available for you to rewatch or to perhaps send to a friend, or if we will be able to circulate this for businesses in our areas. Thank you again, Peter, for being a co-host, and I will sign off. We have the Sustainability Business Network email there for you. If you need to ask us any more questions, we can certainly keep feeding those back to you. So thank you very much. And if there's anything you wanted to add, let us know. Anything else for our lovely speakers or Peter?
No, thanks, Tanya. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
all right,
everyone.
we'll see you all soon.
Thank you.